Hello and welcome to another episode of Cut the Money Gap. Today, myself, Omar, and Brian are here as usual, ready to discuss timely data that can be helpful to all of you. And what is more of a timely matter than to discuss the holiday season and the stress that comes with that? So, I'm leading today's session with the input of the two gentlemen here. But before I get into it, uh, guys, how do you feel around this holiday? I mean, generally speaking, holidays are stressful, but this year in particular, oh boy, I don't know what we have in store for us. So I just want to check in and see how are things on your end.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a funny holiday season. I mean, I'm not really one for giant family gatherings and huge productions for the holiday season anyway. So I have more of a muted holiday season. But even that, like not being able to spend it possibly, in person with the people that I normally would, and probably just toning things down a little bit more, which I know for a lot of people is going to be really disappointing, especially after a challenging year. So I'm trying to just roll with the punches and make the best of and most of what is available rather than having those very specific expectations that could lead to disappointment.
Absolutely. So I want to share some stuff with you, and I want to hear from you, Omar, as well. But just because Brian was mentioning it, around 70% of people actually report feeling very stressed because of the lack of time or lack of money. And 50% of people have a pressure to give or get gifts. And it's just very stressful because people usually also get wrapped up around how cooking and cleaning is going to look like, even though this year it's going to be very different as far as how we socialize and how families get together. But the lack of money and financial stresses, I think, is going to be the most dominant one this year. Omar, how are things on your end?
Yeah, so it's been stressful like everybody else, but at the same time, Zoom has been a saving grace. I mean, people are getting more and more creative on how to connect and how to meet. I know yesterday one of my cousins that I haven't seen in since COVID basically told me that there was a Polar drive-through in the Pearson Airport. So he's like, "Why don't we do this? This way we can both be in a safe space and get to see each other." So there's a ton of these creative ways of how to connect, and financially, it's caused us to become a lot more vigilant and a lot more careful. It's in a way, I've appreciated the fact that it's been tough, is because it it brought out the best in me in trying to be more planned and more focused.
Yeah, I love how you always have these personal spins on things, Omar. You always reflect on the fact that challenges do bring the best out of us at the end of the day, despite how terrible this time might be. Who you become as a result of these times is going to be an interesting thing to invest our time thinking about and our energy towards. But to go back to what we're talking about here is how to avoid the holiday stress. But before we talk about ways to avoid it, let's talk about what it is and where it comes from. So we talked about the money aspect of it. I know in Brian's episode, we spent some time discussing different ways to budget for gift giving, to budget for other activities that you can do with your family that involve spending quality time together without necessarily straining your wallet. But the overall vulnerability that people experience is the expected pressure that comes along the giving gift experience. The average Canadian actually spends around $675 on gifts. And you may think that, depending on your economical factors, this may be something that you would think is a very low number, or it could be quite high for other people. But given that most of Canadians don't even have a proper emergency fund, which is a fund that helps them in case of unexpected expenses coming along, that could be quite the hefty amount, especially because usually people don't save or put this money aside. So usually it's coming out of credit card or loans that people ultimately use to fund these gifts. So before talking about how stress can show up to people, let's discuss some ideas on how you can save money on these gifts to this season, especially in COVID. And I want to discuss a few strategies that I thought about. And some of the things you can start doing is look into the small expenses that can add up so easily, that can creep up on you extremely easily, and start really eliminate the things that don't add value and yet they add unexpected expenses. And these things could be like the gift wrapping, shipping costs that can, especially now that things are happening that you're ordering online, and also the decorations. So, from a shipping cost perspective, a lot of stores, a lot of places offer free shipping over a certain amount. So you may want to think about, Brian talked about that in his episode. Think about your list collectively, and you can start grouping people together. Like these people, you want to buy them gifts from a specific store, or these people you want to, um, maybe personally spend some time making their gift. That way you're planning your gifts overall instead of paying additional shipping costs that can add up to the gift expense. You're going to be grouping things together and saving yourself this additional expense that can easily creep up on you. Another thing we talked about is the gift wrapping itself. So people sometimes, I mean, this year, I really don't know what to expect around these things, but you can spend some time wrapping your gifts yourself to save that money. And get creative in how you can deliver it if people are not within the same city. One example I came up with is I started buying my friends' experiences online, such as classes that I knew they wanted to develop their skill sets in. I bought two of my best friends a goal setting exercise. Actually, it's called Self-Authoring by Jordan Peterson. You can get the program now. They have it on sale. You can get two accounts for $30 US, which is actually great value. And this way you're supporting your friends on their journey as well. So think about creative ways you can gift your friends without necessarily having to, um, you know, harm your wallet in other regards. Do you guys have anything to add on that? Because what I really want to dive into is how stress can show up in our lives, because these things aren't necessarily understood properly. And then we're going to talk about strategies to cope with them. But before I do that, are there any unique ideas or gifts or thoughts that come to your mind as we discuss the stress of the gift giving in general?
Well, two things that came to mind for me, Asil, while you were chatting. The first one was when you said, the average Canadian spends around $675. And again, that doesn't sound like a huge amount, but I know, because I follow these kind of stats all the time, that according to some of the big newspapers, over 50% of Canadians were like, if their bills were more than $200 or went up by $200, they would be in big trouble in a given month. So knowing that, if that's the limit for most people, and then over the holidays, they're tripling that, no wonder people are suffering from so much stress and winding up in the holiday hangover, like I talked about in my previous episode come January. So that was one of the first things that I wanted to say. And the second one was, you reminded me of, this happened a little while ago for me. After I did my basement, I put in a little mini gym for myself. And so I wanted to get some gym equipment. So I was shopping for like dumbbells and kettlebells and stuff. And because of COVID, most of these normal stores that I would go to, you couldn't come and visit the store. You had to shop online and get it shipped. It's like, wait a minute, how much is the shipping on a 35-pound kettlebell or two 15-pound dumbbells? And so I did wind up like driving across the city, because I would have spent more on the shipping than the actual thing. So people forget about that. They tend to just look at the price and then, ignore what the final cart amount is. It is absolutely worth looking into that. And as you said, take advantage of free shipping, or maybe there's pickup in your area, or that sort of stuff that can go on, because that's where you can wind up adding 50% to your bill just through the shipping costs. So yeah, I think those are some fantastic tips so far, Asil.
Yeah, I also want to add to that. Asil, you came up with some great ideas, whether it's the virtual learning or making the gift, and especially making the gift. I think it's a great idea for somebody who's working on a budget and wants to get to a lot of people. come up with some creative ways where you can, put something of meaning versus going and buying something of high value. Put something of meaning, which to people will mean so much more. Add your own customization to something, engravements and stuff like that would, they go a long way because they're not going to cost that much, but people will really appreciate them.
Absolutely. So we talked about a little briefly how the stress of gift giving can happen and some of the ways to mitigate this risk. But I really want to talk about even the way stress shows up in our life. Because sometimes we experience physical symptoms and we may not understand what is that, what it is, and where it's coming from. Stress can manifest itself in symptoms that are truly they may seem like typical day-to-day things, but it shows up in the ways of headaches, sleep disturbances, fatigue, exhaustion, difficulty of concentrating. You may have like a short temper, whether it's with your kids or your clients or your colleagues or your partner. You may have upset stomach. That's a very common one, like whether it's feeling nausea or just feeling like something uneasy in your stomach overall. Your overall job satisfaction and life satisfaction for that matter could be like suffering as well as your morale. You may have aching muscles throughout your body, especially lower back pain. And that's, it's interesting because the back is a sign of support and stability. And when you feel that your whole foundation in life is shaky, you may actually start experiencing physical symptoms that represent that. There's a really interesting book, I forgot the name of it, but it talks about the different pains we experience in the body and the symbolism behind that area. It's a interdisciplinary field between medicine and spirituality. It's really cool. I'll get you the name for next episodes. You may also experience appetite disturbances, whether you're losing your appetite or on the other hand having extremely big appetite and just munching on anything that your eyesight get a hangover, your eyesight or your hands get a hangover or whatever. You can also experience changes in your behavior and overall experience decline in productivity and work performance. And out of all these symptoms that I just described, I just want to get vulnerable here and say that I've been experiencing those. A whole range of these symptoms apply to me and to a lot of my family and friends that I'm speaking to, even to my clients. And this is normal. Like, it's important to give ourselves some time and space to process this. I was even talking to Brian prior to us starting to record this session, how hard it was for me to even just show up today. And that's why I'm having sometimes, I'm not making sense, but I'm just going with it because it's hard. It's hard to, sometimes getting out of bed is hard. Sometimes having a smile on my face is hard. And I just pat myself on the back and say, it's okay. I'm doing my best. I'm getting through the day. And what is it that I can do today, even if it's a minor shift in my day that can help me lower the stress that I'm going through, whatever it may be. So one of the things I started doing is I have now a jug of water. So hydrating was a major problem for me, and now I find that I'm becoming addicted to water almost, just because of the fun way I'm going about it. So I put like interesting fruits, usually lemon, blueberries, strawberries. Sometimes I go the other way, like putting cucumber and mint or whatever it is, just making water very easy and accessible for me, but also appetizing. Looking into a jug of water like this, entices you to drink from it. Another thing I'm doing is I have candles around me at all times. It helps comfort and soothe me for some reason. I have fresh flowers. I don't get them. My fiance gets them for me, but it certainly helps my mood. And these are really little things that you can start doing in your surroundings to support yourself through this process, because stress is there. There's no way around that. What we can do to our surroundings can go a long way in supporting and creating a self-care and self-love ritual for ourselves. Sometimes I put certain music, aromatherapy, and I registered in a online Zoom workouts that happens around 1 o'clock, which is right in the middle of the day, and it helps me, pick up energy and connect with my body to help me throughout the afternoon part. So these are some of the tips I'm sharing right now, just to tell you how, you know, inevitable stress is going to be this holiday season, but there are a lot of things that we can do to help battle it. So I have lots to share, but I also want to take a break and hear from you about what you have to say. I feel like I just dumped a whole bunch of information and emotion on you. So I'm going to sit back and see the impact of what I just shared.
Yes, yes. One thing I love about you is your level of authenticity. It's always refreshing to see that smile on your face, regardless what kind of day, regardless what kind of mood. It's this one thing that we actively adopt, being an adult, taking on responsibilities and taking on bigger dreams, and so it's something that we can't run away from, and it's really important to normalize this. It's in everybody's life. We all experience this, and seeing you being authentic about it, I think, is going to touch a lot of the people. And because you are an idol in many people's eyes, a lot of people follow you and listen to you, and it's very normal to go through these emotions. And each person deals with it differently. And I've picked up some of these habits from you just by being around you. Sometimes Asil does actually walk around with a jug of water everywhere she goes, and it's always nicely decorated with fruits and colors and flavors. So and she's helped keep me hydrated as well. So I wanted to emphasize that this emotional roller coaster that is accentuated these days in the middle of this pandemic is very normal and is experienced by everybody. And if anybody says that they don't, then they're lying.
So what are some of the ways that you guys are doing to support yourself? Yeah, Brian, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No worries, Asil. Along those same lines, the comments that Omar just made, one of the things I wanted to say is, there may be days when we wake up and we don't have a smile on our face, and that's okay too, right? Like for a lot of people, I think getting permission of like, you know what, today I'm just not in a smiley mood. I'll get back there, all right? And I'll make the energy and the effort to get back there. But today, it is not a smiley day, and that's okay too. I know for me, myself, when you were talking, I was thinking back, I think it was about a week and a half ago when I recognized that I'd had like several mornings in a row where I just didn't want to get out of bed. You have those days where you wake up and the first thing you think of is, oh, I can't wait to go back to sleep tonight, because it just didn't feel like a restful sleep. And sometimes I have those, but I was having it like 5, 6, 7 days in a row. And that to me was a signal of, okay, something is going on here. I have to pay attention. And two things that I caught about myself. One was that I was creating my own anxiety in my head, which I know you've talked about a lot, right? When I was going on my dog walks, when I, in the shower, whatever, I was just oscillating around and around and around with the things, creating extra worry and anxiety for myself, which wasn't helping. So I committed to surrendering and shutting that off. And the second thing, I'm getting something in my throat. I can't talk. Let me sort that out and I'll come back.
Yeah, I
go ahead, Omar.
Sure. We'll give Brian a little bit of time to to swallow. Maybe get some water with lime and strawberry, Brian.
That's what I was thinking. Is unfortunately I don't have a jug of water with fruit in it right now. So maybe a jug of water with some MCT oil would be a good combination right about now. The other thing that I did was I stopped snacking after 8:30. I made a commitment to myself and recognizing that, these lovely salty and chocolatey snacks that I like to have in the evening, and I felt that I deserved after a tough day, were actually keeping me from having a good night's sleep. So rather than looking at it as punishing myself of like, oh, I'm not going to let myself have these snacks, it was like, yeah, I can have them, but have them earlier in the evening, so that when I go to bed, my digestion is not being affected and it's not hindering my sleep. And so after implementing that, the two things, lowering my own anxiety level and stopping the snacking past 8:30, made a difference, and I started sleeping soundly again. So, but I wanted it to be not about punishing myself, but actually towards another goal, right? Still allowing myself to have some snacks after, like what might have been a tough, busy day, but just when I was having those snacks to maximize my sleep.
Absolutely. So I really want to wrap up this session by taking a breath first of all, but reminding people that self-care is going to be extremely important this holiday season. So according to study, the average person should actually take at least 5 periods of what they would consider a me time during a holiday season, and that's in a normal holiday season. So I would say this holiday season, maybe you want to even double that. And me time could be as simple as taking a long shower, going for a walk, reading a book for pleasure, not reading a book for study. Um, doing anything that you feel is important for you. So these are some of the things I really wanted to share today. And one of the things actually I want to mention before I wrap up is I started looking into ways to have themed date nights with my partner. I haven't shared this with him yet, so if I send him this episode before I tell him, it's going to be a surprise. But there are certain ideas I'm going to start thinking about, like whether it's baking things together or dressing up a certain way, like showing up as a teenager to our date night or whatever. Like I'm just gonna have fun with it this year, because what else are we gonna do? Another thing is looking into how do you spend your time even when you're resting, because a lot of my time was spent on Netflix. This was my kryptonite, and I realized that I was being even more sluggish and more tired after my supposedly rest time, and it's just counterproductive. So I decided that I'm going to invest my time looking for hobbies to energize me. And one of the things that I saw is something called Lumosity, which I bought an account for me and my friends. It's a brain workout app where you can start playing games to help you with your cognitive abilities. So look for ways that even your downtime is something that energizes you versus something that is just going to contribute further to your sluggishness. um, and that's all for today. I really just wanted to remind people how normal it is to experience symptoms of stress, how these stress symptoms show up, and most importantly, what we can do about them to mitigate them. That's all I have, and I hope this was helpful for everybody who's listening. Have a great day.